They would come and gamble on our front porch. We had these dumpsters. Every night they would set them on fire in front of our house. Oh yeah, such a difficult time.
Well, welcome to Insights with Marsha. We have a really, really special guest. I know I always say we have a special guest, but we have a really, really, really good one. And his name is Samuel Bistrian, and he is from Romania and has an amazing story. Samuel was actually the guest speaker at an event I went to, and the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I've got to let him tell his story for everybody because it's so amazing. And so luckily one of the people I came with was one of the other people that had just, spoken about something. So we had a table right up front. We were next to y'all's table and I was like, okay, it's over with. Grab him. We've got to talk to him. So Samuel is the CEO and founder of Roma Boots, and we have some here on the table. They're quite amazing, but we're going to hear all about them, the whole story. So Samuel, I think you told most of your story to us that day, but you grew up in communist Romania. I'm going to tell a little bit of your story. One of 12 children in a 2-bedroom house. And most people would think, how do you rise above that? But I think it was the love and the respect to your parents. And it seems like they were Christian, or I think they were Christian. They taught the word. They taught you how to be giving back to people. So tell me about all of that.
Yeah, first of all, Marsha, what an honor to be on your podcast. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you.
What a privilege this is. And yes, we met that night and immediately your smile, and your spirit, I was like, absolutely, let's do this. Let's get on. And here we are in 2026.
That's right.
Can't believe we're in a new year. Happy New Year. But yeah, so grew up very poor. Grew up, with the ninth of 12 siblings. And the ninth book in the Bible is Samuel. So I was like, Mom, did you name me Samuel? Because of that, she said, no. My mom actually had a dream with all of our names. And so, so my dad pretty much grew up an orphan. And he said, God, give me as many children as you want. And so 6 boys, 6 girls, living in a village of about 100 people. So we were 10% of the village, as you can imagine. We were the largest family in this village, about a couple hours away from Timișoara, where the revolution actually started. Another 2 hours plus, maybe, from Budapest, Hungary. So, but yeah, that was that was an interesting life, and we grew up very poor. I didn't know how poor we were. I was, a kid. I was 8 years old actually when we came to the U.S. But something that really transformed my life as a kid was receiving my first pair of hand-me-down faded orange rain boots. I knew that I could go outside and play and run in the snow and the mud and not worry about my feet getting wet. And we didn't have the luxury of paved roads or sidewalks like we do here.
Right?
So, yeah, that was very impactful. But my parents raised us. You alluded to whether they were Christians or not. They were. My dad became a believer in his, I believe, mid-30s, got married, and basically was very passionate, very radical in his faith, even under communism. And they instilled in us, both my mom and my dad instilled in us from a very young age, gratitude, compassion, kindness, just all those values that we get from the Bible. One thing we would do every morning is we would wake up and pray. We would pray before every meal. We would read our Bible. We would pray before going to bed. My dad and mom would gather all of us together, and we would pray before going to sleep as a family. So I think those things are probably the biggest, I would say, just the biggest deposits that they left in all of us, all of my siblings, that we can pass down to our children now.
Yes.
Of our faith.
Wow. So you're 8 years old and coming to America. What was that like?
Well, I remember every now and then we would get a postcard, or somebody in the village would get a postcard from America. And it was always Chicago, but I would look at that and I was just starting to read, I was like a little kid by the time, 5, 6 years old, and look at Chicago. I would try to read it. I would be like, because there would be one, the mailman would come in the village once, to deliver this. And I always thought to myself, man, I would see, USA. Never did it occur to me where America was or anything like that. But we knew it was a more beautiful place than, the gray, gloomy, morose communism village life that we were used to. So yeah, we had some extended family that lived in Chicago. And they came and basically appealed for us to come as refugees to the U.S. And it was in fall of 1989 that they visited us. That's when communism fell, and we were actually one of the very few families that was able to escape because we had received some sort of a visa that was about to expire.
Wow.
And just a few weeks before it expired, we were able to leave. November 29th is when we set foot in Chicago as a family of 13. One sister got married and remained behind. So it was me, 10 siblings, and my parents.
Wow.
And what a day that was. It was just before the holidays. I could remember arriving to O'Hare and there were lights everywhere. That's one thing that stood out to me. The lights were blinding because we didn't have lights like that in the village. And oftentimes the electricity, the power would get cut off. We didn't have running water, and so I could just see lights everywhere and red, yellow, green because it was the holidays, Christmas trees. It was just something that stood out to me in a remarkable way. And I was and hearing the music and the sounds, I was mesmerized.
I bet.
I was just looking all around.
Like a wonderland.
Yeah, that was a special day. And it was that same night that we were introduced to pizza. I had no idea what pizza was. So it was it was a day I'll never forget.
Well, so did you move in with those relatives or?
So we came, we stayed, we were kind of spread out and with some, a family picked us up, a family from the church, Romanian church there in Chicago, and we were kind of split up. Some of us went with some with others. The good boys went here. So we were split up like that for some time until they were able to kind of accommodate all of us. And we eventually moved into a 2-bedroom, inner city, apartment in Chicago, which was very different than the life in the village. Especially in early 90s, if you remember, Chicago was very violent, still is. So Chicago was still very dangerous, but inner city Chicago in the 90s was very difficult. So it was quite a transition for us. It was pretty hard, actually.
Yeah, I could see that.
Those early years.
Yeah.
It was cold, and we would want to go outside to go to a store or walking, and it was pretty challenging. And then we started school, not a word of English, and we literally showed up in the U.S. with no English, the clothes on our back, and maybe a few dollars that my parents had from selling all of our belongings in Romania, and started life all over. But it's the best thing that happened to us.
Yes.
That's why I'm here talking to you.
Yes.
But it was challenging.
Yes. And I admire your parents for taking that step. That's huge. They're risk takers.
It was 11 siblings.
Wow.
I don't often think about it, but it was quite an endeavor for them to do that.
That's bravery. I don't know if I could have done it. That's amazing. So now you went off to college, and it seems like, did you do like some trips around, and maybe kind of started sparking you to want to go back and help?
So we left my grandma behind, and I always wanted to return to see my grandma, my uncle, other family that we had. So there was this desire for me to return. So as a kid, I always was a wanderer. I always wanted to travel. So something inside of me told me that I was going to be traveling the world, not knowing when and how it was going to happen, but I just sensed that even as a kid. After Chicago, 2 years after living there, we moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. of all places.
Yes.
Why Knoxville, Tennessee? Well, we had a friend that moved there from Chicago, and they told us that we can have our own home. We didn't know it was going to be in the projects, government housing projects.
Mhm.
So we made that move. We got up, we had a van at this time, a big brown van. We all loaded up the van and made that 10-hour drive to Knoxville. And unlike the melting pot of Chicago, Tennessee was a lot different, especially in 1993 when we moved there.
Yeah.
So in the projects, especially, you had whites and blacks, and then you had the Romanian. It was really a lot of racism. That was really, really tough.
Yes.
Really tough. But there was so much beauty that happened even there in the middle of the projects, in the middle of that darkness. And so I was able to meet a family that would come in on Wednesdays. They would come to the Boys and Girls Club, and they realized we were Romanian, and they saw, I guess, talent in us, and they began to invest in us. And then they invited us to come to their church, and they would pick us up on Sundays and bring us to church with them. And they said, guys, you have a lot of potential, and it's going to be tough for you to really realize that potential here. We should help you get out. And because we had good grades in school, all of us, we were able to accumulate these points through Habitat for Humanity, which they introduced us. If I could back up a little bit, they introduced us to Habitat for Humanity, and they work on a point system. Once you achieve these points, you're able to get a house. And so after, a good, 4 or 5 years, I would say, of living in the projects, we were able to obtain our first house through Habitat for Humanity. Just to fast forward, because there's some stories within Knoxville that really set the pace or paved the way for where I am right now. But we eventually moved into a house that was built, somebody else had lived in. It was a Habitat home. Mm-hmm. And that opened up a whole new chapter for us in America. We'd finally have our own home. My mom can have a garden now. She can have animals, to kind of connect her back to Romania somehow.
Yes.
And then to Dallas. Eventually came to Dallas as each one of us graduated high school. Mm-hmm. And then through Dallas, that's kind of how we began to travel. We began to really get involved in missions and whatnot. And that all started really in Romania. Mm-hmm. When we moved here to America, my parents instilled in us these values, I think, that stuck with us forever. And they always said, don't ever forget where you came from. And don't ever despise the day of small beginnings. And we knew as we were starting small here, God will use us eventually to bring hope to the people that we left behind. So, of course, after college, my oldest sister moves back to Romania to start an orphanage home or a house for orphan girls. Wow. My oldest brother moved back to start a school and whatnot. And then it was my turn.
Number 9, your number's up.
It was my turn. And so after college, I ended up going to Colombia, South America. I had a girlfriend at the time who was from Colombia. I did YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And I spent some time in Colombia, Cuba, and Panama doing, humanitarian work, missions work. But I just felt like I want to be able to do that full time. Mm-hmm. And eventually we got married. I'm back in Dallas. We have a baby. As much as I want to travel and do all of these things, I also knew I had to take care of my family and provide for my newborn daughter. Mm-hmm. And so I needed a job. Mm-hmm. And I got a job working at Neiman Marcus.
That's a good one.
And that was the perfect platform for me to start or to finally start what I'm doing right now. So, wow. There's a lot in there that I could unpack. I just don't want to, continue without, just glossing over some things. But if I could just back up a little bit, Marsha, to our life in Tennessee. Yeah. Life in Knoxville was very difficult, but very beautiful at the same time. Mm-hmm. When we were living in the project, I told you about this family that really became fond of us, and they said, "Hey, you guys, we can try to help you. We see, that you're hardworking, you're smart, and Knoxville at that time was very, very different than what it is right now. Of course, now it's full of people from everywhere,
Well,
but at the time it wasn't. And I had friends that I went to school with that are dead, that OD'd on
oh,
drugs, that got shot.
wow.
And that's the trajectory for most of the people living in the project.
Mm,
It was very hopeless. I
mm-hmm.
had so many friends, and I remember we couldn't even play outside
Wow.
at certain times because it would get dark, and I mean, there would be thugs with guns running around selling drugs. Police would be well, the doors would be boarded up. Apartments, we had some Romanian friends that got stabbed and moved from Chicago's there because you start to have more families. Once a Romanian family moves in, you have more
Yeah.
and more. That's kind of how it is,
Yeah.
with any culture. People gravitate towards people that are like them and whatnot. And and there was just a lot of violence. We would get jumped. I remember,
Wow.
waiting for the bus, and kids would just come and bully you and throw your backpack on the floor and try to poke a fight with you because you were different and dumb,
Mm-hmm.
And that would often happen, I remember, wanting to play soccer outside with my dad and my siblings, and we would be barefoot and we would get cut because these slugs would take these bottles of 40 and would just throw them against our house, and glass would just splatter everywhere. And
Mm.
my mom planted a little garden around the house, tomatoes and peppers. And before they could even get ripe, they would come, and these kids, these bullies would come and just take, the tomato and smash them against the house. We had this
Mm.
maroon Subaru, and I remember the kids would just go and jump on it, just try to stir
Yeah. Yeah.
anger within us, and we couldn't do anything. What can we do,
Mm-hmm.
They would come and gamble on our front porch there. We had these dumpsters. They would just, every night, they would set them on fire in
Oh
front
my
of our house.
gosh.
Oh yeah, it
Wow.
was such a difficult time. I remember just being so afraid, and I was 10 years old, 11
Oh,
years old, and you're
very
helpless.
scary.
Yeah, you
Yes.
don't know what's gonna go on. Or people would come in the middle of the night and bang on your door, and you're like, yeah, there was so much fear I lived under during that time.
Mm.
But at the same time, my most beautiful memories from living there would be this family that would come in on Wednesdays and spend time with us and play fun games and do so many things, that would just give us hope.
Mm.
And then I got my first, I never had a Christmas list, and I was asked to make a Christmas list. And that was such an awesome opportunity for me to just really write down what I wanted. And I remember putting down a sleeping bag, a remote control car, a
Ugh.
pair of shoes. And sure enough, on that Christmas in 1993, this white van pulled up into our house. There was snow everywhere. It was a blizzard of 93. I'll never forget
Oh
that.
my
And they
gosh.
pulled up and they brought gifts to us. And it was just such a beautiful memory that I had. And I was so touched by that these people would just do that for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew then that there would be a time or there would come a time where I would be able to do the same thing for others, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And so it was those moments that really touched me, inspired me, even as a little kid. And I would see glimmers of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful. And then eventually, like I said, we were able to get our own house through Habitat for Humanity, through the same sort of families there. And life in America kept getting better and better for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see the goal was to not give up, but to persevere, to fight through all those situations. And quite frankly, it forged a character in us. And it kind of al- allow us to become the people that we are today. I think all my
Mm-hmm.
siblings, which were fighters, and we also
Yeah.
believe in God. We can see God's hand, His faithfulness,
Mm-hmm.
through, all those circumstances, and
Mm-hmm.
all those situations, and is strengthened our faith.
Yeah. I bet all those situations with the kids, the gangs and stuff, it built, because part of what I love to talk about is how all the things that at the time we thought were negatives in our life, and later we look back and go, I learned resilience from that, or I learned to not give up from that. And that couple or the family that came, well, I learned that how special it felt to be given to that I wanted to give to others. So we just don't even realize how the life we're living now is shaping everything
That's exactly.
and shaping it for a wonderful life. I finally learned that just looking back. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I've been writing a book about my life from being a little kid and having dyslexia and repeating a grade at school and feeling dumb and all that kind of stuff, and all the things you go through and thinking, no, the fact I couldn't read and everybody else made me say, I'm going to study harder. I'm going to figure this out. So everything we go through in life that we think's bad, it's shaping us. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out the good it did, but it's doing good. What advice would you get if there's a 10-year-old that lives in the projects right now that's listening to you say that? What would you tell them?
Just take it one day at a time. And for me, uh, it was hard at times because you are trying to fit in, you're trying to be cool, with the other kids, but at the same time, you're fighting so much fear and insecurity, and you're just, you know, uh, you're doing your best, and yet you just go one more day, go one more day. I think for us, it was so important because we had each other, the siblings, and my parents would always tell us that you guys have each other, stand together. And even to this day, we're very unified
Yeah.
as siblings. My mom's got 40 grandchildren now, So all
Wow.
of us, we do stuck together. I think that's important.
Yes.
But I think of the kids that don't have that they're the only child,
Yeah.
or they feel rejected by everyone. There's so much pain in that. And that's why I have so much compassion for the bully, for the rejected, for the
Yes.
oppressed, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to see somebody that gets picked on and there's nobody there to defend them.
Mhm.
And that's where I pray. I'm like, God, you are a defender of the orphans. You are a protector of the widows, the fatherless. And that's really my heart. Even the way I started Roma, and I'm going to get into that, is
Yeah.
because I do care about the destitute. I care about the oppressed. I care about the neglected, because at some point I was able to identify with them. I was that person,
Yes.
and I didn't
So
give
you're
up.
right, you
And
can
I
identify.
fought through that, and by God's grace, I'm on the other side now. And it's like, I have so much compassion. And just to go back to this, because this is a question I haven't been asked, what would I say to that kid? I would say, you can do it. Keep fighting. These people that are bullying you are insecure themselves.
Mhm.
They have no strength. You have more strength than they do, And I think really letting them know who they are in God. They were created in the image of God, and being created in the image of God makes you the most powerful person in the world. It doesn't matter who you are. You are tethered to the very force that created the whole universe. It doesn't matter if you're a little insecure kid in the project or if you're a billionaire in Mar-a-Lago, it does, or in Florida, it doesn't matter. You are still a child of God,
Yeah.
and you have that same potential.
Yeah. And he has a plan and purpose for everybody, and it's a good one. Jeremiah 29:11,
Correct.
good plan. And they may not see it then, but it's there. It's
Yeah.
coming out. And I'm like you, just pray, God, keep bringing it out. Keep showing
Yes.
me. That's neat.
Yes.
Well, I actually think it's kind of fun. You didn't say much about Neiman's, but I think it would be fun if you tell them your quick roll through the ranks and how that worked. Because to me, that just says even somebody, if I remember right, that's working the loading dock can eventually be massive with Neiman's. The things you do are to me are amazing. So kind of give them that quick little chronological there.
Yeah. So here I am now in Dallas. My wife and I are married. I needed a job, and I'm getting a job at Neiman Marcus. I probably could have gotten a better position, but I had a friend from Knoxville, Tennessee, who was also sort of wasting his life on drugs, and I invited him to come live with me. I was trying to help him, actually. I did that with a couple of friends from Tennessee.
Yeah.
And because I found this new life here. I
Yeah.
started going to school.
Come on over.
And I mean, I had some dark years in Knoxville, but I don't want to get into too much of that. Eventually, I did get into drugs and whatnot, and I needed to make a shift, And I came to Dallas. I started school, and my life changed. I really gave my life to Christ after sowing my wild, seeds there. And And I was living hopeless for a while. If I can, I know you asked me a specific question here, and I want to touch on that. But I skipped over some. Living in the projects, exposed me to a lot. And then we get to Habitat for Humanity. We get into a new home. And I'm thinking, a natural entrepreneur here. These kids are smoking weed. I get invited to a friend's house. I start smoking weed with them. It's the first time I spend a night at a friend's house. That's why my parents encouraged us to stay unified, stick together, don't. And so bad influence, bad company corrupts good morals, the Bible says. And that was true. And so the first night I spent a night with somebody, I ended up getting high. And now here I am at this new school. And I'm like, you guys we're supposed to all pitch in to buy some weed. And I'm like, I don't want to get it.
I don't want to do that.
I could get it cheaper. So in the projects, you get it. But I got involved. The last 2 years in high school, I started smoking pot, got into drugs. It was a very, very, I would say, something my parents would have never envisioned for me. And I knew my life was wasting away. And I knew I needed to make a change. I had family praying for me. My parents were praying for me. And in my heart of hearts, I knew there would come a day where I would help people in need. Even when we would get high, we would talk about that. And I would say that one day I'm going to do something good for humanity. I would say that. But I felt like I was a slave to that. And it was, again, 2 years of high school, but I still finished with a 3.1 or 3.2 GPA.
Wow.
But it could have been a lot better. So, but I needed to make a transition. Sometimes if you're around the community and you want to change, you're still running around with the same friends, you can't. It's hard.
Yeah, no.
And so I moved to Dallas, and that allowed me to break from that lifestyle. I changed my life, and I found hope, and I found, I told you, I was able to give my life to Christ entirely. And I surrendered to you, God, lead my path. And sure enough, I started this school that I went to. I ended up getting, going after the 2 years of this Bible school. I ended up doing Cuba, Colombia, Cuba, Panama with YWAM, doing missions work and whatnot. And then I am back in Dallas. I ended up getting married. I started working at Neiman Marcus. But I'm thinking about the friends that I had in Knoxville. And how can I help them? So I started letting one by one come and staying with me for some time. And next it was my friend Russ. And Russ was living with us, and he needed a job, and I needed another job because now I had a baby. Prior to that, I was working at Chili's as a server. And I need a better job. And so Russ and I go to North Park Mall.
Love
and we
it.
go to Dillard's.
Yeah.
And then we go to Neiman Marcus. Neiman Marcus was needing seasonal help. So they look at Russ, they look at me, and they say to me, I say to them, I said, we need to be scheduled together. And whatever position he has, I'm going to have the same position because I'm going to be his driver. He's living with me. And so they hired us to unload boxes at the dock every morning at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So I would pick up Russ in the morning, or he lived with me for some time. After he got his first paycheck, or his parents saw that he actually had a job, we got him an apartment. They got him an apartment, rather. And I'll never forget the day I went to pick up Russ one day, and Russ did not answer the door. And I'm knocking, and I'm like, Russ, open, please. And he wouldn't open. So I finally had to go to work. And found out that Russ went right back to his lifestyle. He got some paycheck. He got paid from Neiman's. And 2 weeks later, he's taking that money and going to Lower Green or wherever he went, got drugs. And that's why he didn't come to the door. And I get a promotion. And so I get promoted. I get on the floor, on the sales floor. And, as much as I wanted to, some people really, you can do everything for them, but if they don't have.
No, they've got to want to change.
Yes. And so I kept getting promoted, and I moved into the fur department. And that's what I ended up selling fur coats to Dallas socialites in Dallas.
Yes.
And it was fun. I've done that world for me was really, really interesting because eventually I became the department manager of the fur department at North Park Mall. And
It's quite a feat in Dallas,
yes,
Texas. That's big stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so selling chinchillas and Russian sables and lynx and fox
Wow.
and mink. I never
Mm.
thought I would be selling fur coats, but that's what I did. And during college, I worked for Delta Airlines.
Oh, okay.
So Delta allowed me to travel the world for free. So I was able to go all over the world.
How perfect.
And this job with Neiman's now was really good because if you remember, September 11 happened, and
Mm.
a lot of the airlines had to lay off.
Mm.
Delta was one of the airlines that provided the best benefits. So if you had at least 2 years active with them, which I did during college, they gave you a 5-year leave of absence with full flight benefits. So here I am working at Neiman Marcus. I have summers pretty much off because nobody's buying fur coats in the summer.
No.
So I'm traveling and I'm enjoying getting to know other cultures, other countries, but I'm also exposed to a lot of need during this time. I'm seeing in Romania what my siblings are doing. I'm going to Colombia, where my wife is from. I'm seeing need. And I always envisioned combining my love of travel, fashion, and missions, philanthropy, and merging those. And I would always look for an opportunity to do that. I said, I wish I can do what my siblings are doing in Romania. I wish I can help the kids in Colombia. And mind you, prior to Neiman Marcus, I did some missions work with YWAM, and so I was like, I wish I could do that, but I also knew I had to provide for my family. And so I was always looking for a way to merge those two, my fashion and philanthropy. And eventually that happened. They came about through Neiman Marcus.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So I remember I would come down the escalator, and we talked previously. You were
This
the
was at
only guy
Neiman
working
Marcus.
there, so I've seen you and I've talked to you. There's the first, but right behind the first was the shoe department. So did that have any bearing on where you are today?
Yes. And that's exactly where I would be. We would have these fur caravans during the holidays right below the escalators and between that and the shoe department. And if I can recall, in 2008, in the middle of the recession, or at the beginning of the recession, I remember leaving Neiman Marcus, and I said, I just want to do something more meaningful with my life. I was the manager of the fur department. I had a beautiful house in Lakewood. We were doing really well, but I just felt like my life was losing meaning. And there was so much momentum at Neiman Marcus, but I was like, I got to do something different. So I took a year off. I went back to Delta during that time, and to keep my flight benefits. So it was sort of,
that was smart.
yeah.
Yes.
So to keep my flight benefit, and I also during that time I wrote a book, and this book, Goodbye Transylvania, I wrote, I want to do something for the Romanian children. I just don't know what and when. And of course, here we are. It's a recession. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for a while. I came back to Dallas. Neiman Marcus calls me right back. I had no choice I needed to pay for the bill, so I went back. And just a couple months after I went back, Blake McCoskey, the founder of Tom's, is launching Tom's and Neiman's right there where we would have our fur caravan.
And that was the big launch.
Yes.
Wow.
So, and like you said, I was the only guy that's worked now for over a decade there. So I'm sure at some point I sold you a fur coat.
You did.
But here I am back in the world, but I knew I was going back for a season. I knew I was going to stay. So I went back and I'm like, wow, this actually is working out. So I meet Blake, and that was such a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to do something, especially with footwear. I didn't know much about Tom's. I had a friend that told me about Tom's prior to that, but Tom's was pretty new.
Yes.
And I remember meeting Blake, and he had a ping pong table set up there and playing people in ping pong and doing this launch of Tom's.
He had a ping pong table with the launch?
Yeah.
I guess it got people's attention. Like, why is there a ping pong table in Neiman's shoe department?
I think he said if anybody can beat him in ping pong, they get a free pair of Tom's.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. So, but I had a chance to meet him. I said, Blake, have you considered doing anything for children in Eastern Europe or in Romania? I have family that works there, that does a lot of work there with kids. And he didn't seem too much to be interested. And I think I even mentioned to him about doing rain boots, something more sustainable, practical. And again, he at that time his focus was in Argentina and some countries in Africa.
Huh.
And I will never forget going back to my fur department afterwards, back up on the third floor because that's where we were, and then leaving to go home. And I'm coming back down the escalator, and the setup is still there, and something just hit me, and it says, "Sam, why don't you do it? You can't wait for things to be perfect, for all the stars to be aligned. Just do it." And at that time, I knew I had still student loans. I still had
Yeah, it's like,
$40,000 in credit card debt. I had, not much in my bank account, 5,000. It was the middle of a recession. In fact, I had to come back to Neiman's because I needed money.
yeah.
But I knew I wasn't coming back for good. And so I was like, oh, I want to do it, but God, give me faith to believe that this can happen. So I said, if I cannot escape this idea of doing it, if you keep reminding me of that, I'm going to leave in the spring and start something. And that's what happened.
Wow.
On April 3rd, which happened to be, I think, my 27th birthday.
Oh,
I
wow.
left Neiman's. It was a Saturday. It was my last day at Neiman's. And I
Wow.
left Neiman's to start Roma Boots. Roma being amor, spelled backwards, meaning love. And I remember telling myself, even as I was coming down the escalator, like, God, give me faith to believe that I can do it and let my motivation be pure. I didn't know at the time that it would be love, but over time, this became more clear in my mind that if love is not my motivation, don't even try. But if love is my motivation, it doesn't matter if nobody ever hears of it, I'll be rewarded according to the motives of my heart. And little did I know that what I prayed that day at Neiman Marcus, in 2009, and what later I started in April in 2010 would impact, hundreds of thousands. We would take this thing, to 35 countries around the world.
Wow.
And we would donate boots to kids in the jungles, of Honduras and Nepal and Romania and Syrian refugees in Turkey. All over 35 countries around the world. And here in America, we were just in Kerrville,
Right, with the floods.
last
Yes.
July.
Yeah.
Never did I think in my wildest dreams I would be donating boots in the middle of July in Texas, but we did. A year before that, we were donating 10,000 boots to hurricane victims in North Carolina, an hour away from where our house, we got our house through Habitat for Humanity, and just seeing how God used Roma to touch so many lives, but not just the lives of the children that received the boots directly, but the lives of people that have been inspired by our stories, the lives of people that are producing our boots that are like, no, this is something I want to get behind, and from the very beginning, it was a labor of love.
Yeah.
We had, 3 fish and 2 loaves, basically. I had nothing, and God multiplied it.
Yes.
I remember when I was leaving Neiman, telling a couple of my customers that I'm leaving Neiman's. They said, why? I said, to start a boot company. Really? What are you doing? And immediately they came behind me,
Oh, nice.
Lauren and Sally, and helped me so much with the branding, even with the name, because I was between several different names and the design and, just doing it out of their kindness. Then I had photographers and models to come in and say, hey, we want to do it. Then I had, a space given to us for free for all these years, where we were able to operate. And, the Dallas Morning News doing the story on us, that just gave us a lot of free publicity. And then the publicity kept coming. And even when, after starting Roma, I left in Neiman's in April, of 2010. And that summer was such a difficult summer because I didn't have money, and I'm trying to come up with the money to produce boots, to do this. I'm, traveling to China, and I have a friend who was actually part of YWAM who was in China doing some missions work, and with him I went and visited all these factories until we found the factory that we landed on, that we worked with to this very day, just amazing. My partner there was a Buddhist. He's now a believer.
All right.
It's just crazy how God would use
Roma
Roma,
Boots.
to bring hope to so many people in the places where I least expected it, to politicians and celebrities coming on these boot drops with us and their lives being transformed, because of that. But it's been really fascinating because I know God gets all the glory, not me. All I did was say, God, I'm available, and here I am. Send me, use me, and persevere. I think I had to persevere through some very tough times, especially that first year when we started, because my wife was like, this was a bad idea. We had a long.
We're doing really nicely, honey.
I had to sell my car. I had to pawn things, put things on Craigslist. I mean, I had no money. I'm trying to come up with money to be able to produce these boots, and then through one of the contacts from Neiman's, we were given this free booth at Fashion Industry Gallery at Market in Dallas. We were able to launch there, and then I'm still needing money. I was able to borrow money from family and friends. I have a lot of siblings, so
there you
if
go.
I get 1,000 from each sibling, I'm able to come up with a deposit on the first 10,000 boots or something.
Wow.
And then just miracle after miracle, we saw God's hand. Just as I started, to get our website done, and we have these boots being produced that year in 2010. Neiman's calls me back again. And I had no choice. I said, I borrow money from family and friends. I got to go back to Neiman. So I ended up going back in October, just as our website launched. We were getting our first 5,000 boots, getting ready to arrive. I'm back in Neiman Marcus. And it was such a cool story because here I am in Fort Worth. I have a customer coming into the store, and I'm there with all the furs. And she looks at me and she's like, you're the guy. I just read your story. This was October 15th. Jack, I just read about you in the Dallas Morning News. You're the boot guy.
I love it.
And I was like, yes, here I am selling fur coats. And so she ended up buying she ended up buying a fur coat from me, and then later on buying a pair of boots. I told her we just launched the website. So it was cool how there would be this overlap with Neiman's and furs and Roma Boots, over the years. And so it's been really interesting. Later that year, the same year, 2010, after we launched, here I am at Neiman's. I have a week off, and I remember flying to Romania to do our first boot drop.
Wow.
And it was on Christmas Eve in 2010 that we pull up in this, again, it was such a gloomy village, but a large village close to where my sister started her orphanage home.
Yeah.
And we have this bright red, yellow, and blue rain boots, kids' boots, in this white van. It kind of reminded me of this white van that pulled up to our house.
Right.
In the project.
Back in Knoxville.
And as we pull up here, and there was no indication that it was Christmas. You would hear just like random dogs barking and like echoes, and you would see smoke from the chimney and some houses that were like broken down, and hardly anybody on the street. And this is Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. There was snow and ice and slush. And as we pull up with this white van full of bright red, yellow, and blue boots, it's like we brought Christmas jubilation.
Yeah.
The entire village came alive. Kids started running outside. We gave them boots, and we had all these volunteers there. My brother Abel was with me, and it was just such a remarkable and monumental experience, Marsha.
Yeah.
That moment changed my life.
I bet.
It changed my life because I was there, and I said, I just persevere through this difficult summer. I left Neiman's excited. I'm going to start a boot company, but I didn't know how difficult it was going to be.
Oh.
My background was furs, was not footwear. I didn't know. Barely had a business plan. I never started a business before. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was motivated by love and, action, basically.
Yeah.
And so it was very challenging. It was getting to where we are. And then I have this week off, from Neiman Marcus. I'm like, okay, it's a week that I go to Romania to this boot drop. Well, even before the boot drop, we were stuck in New York for 3 days because flights were canceled.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Flights were canceled to Europe, and at one point I called my wife and I said, what do I do? I'm gonna miss Christmas with the family, because the idea was that we would go there, we would do the boot drop, and I would come home and I would
Right.
have Christmas with my wife, and my daughter was 3 years old at the time, and my older daughter that was like 5.
Yeah.
And she's like, Sam, go help the children, go to the, and so I left, and I literally got there on Christmas Eve, and we
Wow.
go and we distribute these boots. And as I see just kids running around, volunteers giving away red, yellow, and blue boots, and I got to show you pictures
Yes.
of that day. It was such a remarkable day, fascinating in every sense, because I pulled back for a little bit and I said, God, you're so good.
Mhm.
I started as one of these kids in a village like that, nothing. And now, here I am 20 years later, exactly 20 years later, because it was 1990 in
Wow.
November that we came to the US. 20 years later, here we are, bringing hope. That's why we every year in November 29th, we have this thing called Day of Hope. But 20 years later, on Christmas Eve, we're giving these kids boots. And I said, I don't want to do this just in this village. I want to do this all over Romania. Little did I know that we would, like I said, 15 years later, we're doing it all over the world. And I came back home. We opened the gifts, the kids, they were so grateful and so happy. We opened the gifts with them, and I told them, what I had done. And over the years, Emma, Ilona, they've been able to come on boot drops with us, my wife, Alejandra, and it's been cool to see them. Now, my oldest is 21. My middle child is 18, and God graced us with a miracle baby, Mila, who was born 15 months ago.
Yeah.
So she'll be joining the boot drops as we start a new chapter with Roma.
Yes. Oh.
But it's been really cool, and then just seeing people get involved. And all I did was, share my story on social media, where we were always very transparent about what we're doing. We said, here's what we do. We want to, make a boot, and donate a boot and give poverty the boot,
I
these
love that.
kids.
Give poverty the boot.
Break that cycle of poverty. That was our whole endeavor. But even when I started Roma Boots, I said, I want to focus on 2 things that were very important that I would incorporate into or weave into our DNA at Roma Boots that I got from Neiman Marcus, and that was quality and customer service. I knew we had a good story, but I said, if we don't have a good product and we cannot offer exceptional customer service, we're going to fizzle. And so I always told our interns, our volunteers, because it was, like I told you, it was a labor of love. I had interns from SMU, from TCU, from UT. That's kind of how we ran the company, because our margins were very tight. We didn't have a lot of overhead. We had a lot of overhead. We couldn't have made it this far,
Yes.
But I always said that, guys, let's start with love. Let's keep things simple. Let's focus on customer service and on a good product. And we've done that for 15 years. We've done that for 15 years. And that's why we were able to last for 15 years, because many companies that give back started and fizzled out, or use the give back as a marketing gimmick, just to sell a lot of product. And for us, it's always been very genuine. It's always been very authentic. I said, I really want an impact. I want to make an impact in these kids' lives. And I would go on these boot drops, and I would share my story with the kids, and I would look at them and be like, I grew up poor. I grew up like you. If I could do it, you can do it. And their faces would light up, and they would believe that they can also make a difference. And I think that's what sets us apart, because you can have a rich philanthropist from America come, or some business owner, somebody that's really good at business, come and do something for those kids. And it is impacting. It changes their lives. But there's something empowering when I tell them, hey, I walked in your shoes, or your lack of shoes. I was also like you. I didn't have my first pair of rain boots until I was 6, and they were a pair of used rain boots that were passed down from older siblings. You also can pass your boots down to your younger siblings. You also can do what I'm doing one day. Just believe. And I would always tell them, like, when you come in, I would show them the logo, the Roma logo, and I would say, Roma for you, for all. That's amor. Love God and love your neighbor, for you, for all. And I would tell them, like, if you believe that, and if you know that God sent us here, and you have faith in God, there's nothing impossible. There's nothing that you cannot do.
You
And
gave them
again,
hope.
this is kids
Yeah.
that are young, but we would give them hope through that. And again, their faces would light up and they would be so excited. I'm just so happy to be able to do this. I really am. I'm so excited, Marsha. And it's like, it's been such a great journey. And little did I know that after 15 years, we would go full circle and I would be back involved with Neiman Marcus again,
Yes.
back with First. So
Yes.
as of last year,
It's
back in the
exciting.
world of Neiman's again. That's exciting. I think there's some really cool stuff on the horizon that I don't want to get into or can't get into everything right now, but there's a lot of fun things, to know that my daughter, Ilona, was like 15 months when I started working at Neiman Marcus.
Wow.
And it's complete deja vu. I'm back at Neiman Marcus,
And now Mia's
and
little.
Mila's 15 months.
Wow.
But now we're doing boots also.
Yes.
So I'm sort of juggling both, and it's fun because I love that. I love juggling things, and it's great. We just produced 10,000 boots that went to Slovakia.
Oh
Partnered
my
with like World
gosh.
Vision, Convoy of Hope. Convoy of Hope is one of our favorite partners, and so they just shipped the boots from the factory to Slovakia. Another 10,000 boots are being produced for Moldova. That we're going to be donating boots to Moldova.
Wow.
We've done cool stuff, with various people, different artists, that will use the boots as canvas and paint.
Oh,
We partnered with Sadie Robertson back in 2015, which was really nice, and we launched this boots for Nordstrom's and then DSW, and we just saw so many doors kind of open up. And a couple of years ago, we were with the war in Ukraine and everything, we were at the Vision Summit with Convoy of Hope, and they said, we're needing a lot of boots for these Ukrainian refugees that are going into Romania and Poland and other places.
yes.
Can you help with that? And I said, well, that's my home turf. I'm an Eastern girl. My mom's partly Ukrainian, and I said,
Wow.
that's
That's your
an
passion.
area that I have a heart for. And I committed to doing 100,000 boots. And I did it based on a projection of boots that we
Samuel.
would sell, which was 50,000 boots.
Wow.
And little did I know that year would be the year that we would have 5 40-foot containers stranded in Long Beach because of the supply chain. And so that
Oh my
was
gosh.
another one of those years where it was a very difficult year, but at the same time, a very beautiful year, a very rewarding year. We ended up partnering with Demi Tebow, Tim Tebow's wife, for
Oh,
Miss
yes.
Universe, and we took her there with us on that trip, and that was really cool. And yeah, we ended up donating 100,000 boots
That's
towards
amazing.
that effort to help Ukrainian refugees in 2022 and 2023, which was really, really cool. And we just see that, again, something that started, simple and small and local here in Dallas was able to impact the entire world, really nice. And for that, I'm humbled. I really am humbled, and I'm
Yes.
grateful to God, and He gets all the glory for it.
Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things you were saying through that was you were high and you were telling people, one day I'm going to make an impact and I'm going to help people. And I like to say that because for the audience and those of y'all that are listening, and there's so many people now that have been through COVID and everything. They're thinking, what's my purpose? Where am I supposed to go? What am I doing in life? And life has been telling us all along. It's when we make a statement like that, or we're in a certain interaction and something we just really notice and stay impacted like that. Like even Blake saying, yeah, no, I can't get to there right now or whatever. And the things that we look back through in life that just really, we still remember, they click with us, or the things we say, someday I'm going to do this. I don't think we'd say them if God hadn't put them in our hearts and in our purpose and the plan He has for us. So I just like to encourage people, think about what you've been what you've talked about during your life and what you've been passionate about, or what you've observed and where your compassion is, because that's where His plan for you is. And you're just an amazing example of that. that even, that you don't have much. Like when I started my business, I said, I am not taking out a loan. I will not take out a loan because I just didn't believe in borrowing money. And it all, God just kept, started out small, kept preparing. I think he honors that kind of stuff.
That's right.
And what you have done and what you are doing, and these boots to so many children, it's just phenomenal. But I think when you make a declaration like, "I'm gonna do that," God's going, "I'm getting behind you, and we're gonna do this, and you better hold on and enjoy the ride." And you are just I think that's why people love your story, because some people are too afraid to do it, and you did it, and look where you are now. And they need to realize, get over the fear that God wants to take all of us and do something with us. But yours is an amazing story.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
the
thank
people
you.
so if I know, isn't it like around $10 million worth of boots, or do you have
Yeah.
a physical
No,
number?
over $12 million worth of boots that we've had over the last 35 years. Absolutely. Over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's in 35 countries around the world. Yeah.
Wow.
And, you said something earlier about love. Well, I'm sorry, about the fear, getting over your fears. I think that's why I want to hone in on love. If you are motivated by love,
Yeah.
you're able to get past those fears. We're always going to have those fears.
Mhm.
But there's a verse in the Bible that says perfect love casts
Yes.
out all fear. And when you feel that fear, if the inner person, if that place, when you're down in your loneliest moment, or when you feel like nobody understands you, and you come to a place where you can hear that still small voice and you have a desire for doing something, if it's not a selfish desire, but you feel like God created you for this, or this is what you really want to do to make an impact in the world, God will honor that. Just as you said, Marsha, God will honor that. And then, of course, you get out into the real world, and there's all these naysayers, all these negative.
Right.
But if you are able to say, no, I'm going to do this, God places this on my heart. And despite those fears, I'm motivated. That those fears are overcome by something greater, by a
Mhm.
purpose, by love that I have to do it. And you just go out and do it. And there may be no results at the beginning or
Right.
appreciation,
It can take
but
years.
just stay with it, just stick with it, be persistent, stay the course, and that's what it takes, and I think people really need to understand that the best thing that you can do is be true to yourself. Really be true to yourself, because there's times that, gosh, I just would have given up, and I know that mom and dad instilled in us certain values. And I was like, I cannot deny, those things, those values.
Yeah.
And don't compromise. And sometimes people will criticize you for, being too vocal about it, or saying this or saying that. I think you got to stick to your convictions. I heard one thing, and I kind of, I'll wrap it up here. I don't know how much longer you want to go, but I heard one thing, that the number one regret of a dying man is, I wish I would have lived a life more true to myself and not what other people desired of me.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
oftentimes we live, to impress others, to compete with others, to compare. And as I know, be true to yourself. What are you? Each one of us have been given a specific mandate. Each one of us has a purpose in life that only we can do. We have our own unique, fingerprint. And God created us for that moment in time to do great things. And we don't want to be on our deathbed saying, I wish I would have lived a life true to myself.
Yes.
We want to walk, in the purposes that God has ordained for us, and we want to realize our full potential. And the only way to do that is to break the shackles of fear. And the way to do that is to live a life of love.
Yep. You just bam. You just nailed it. Yes. Yes. And you're a great example of it. And I think people need to be watching your social media, because you've got all kinds of exciting things on the horizon. And that's just a tantalizing little tidbit there. That's all you're going to get. Well, tell folks, if they want Roma Boots, how can they get them? Tell us about your foundation, how they can contribute.
Sure.
Anything like that you want them to know.
Absolutely. Well, number one, you can go to romaboots.com and purchase a pair of boots. So for every pair sold, a pair is donated to a child in need. Every quarter, we have a new place where the boots can go. We partner with all these nonprofits.
Oh, cool.
Where the boots and they'll ask, we need boots here or we need boots there.
Awesome.
Roma Boots is a for-profit.
Okay.
Roma Foundation is a nonprofit.
Okay.
So Roma Boots basically funds Roma Foundation. We've
Gotcha.
gotten to a point where there's a lot more demand right now, a lot more demand for rain boots. We've grown, and so we're not able to meet that full demand through the buy one, give one. So let's say we sold 20,000 boots this year. We're donating 20,000 boots, but maybe the request from our nonprofit partners is 50,000 boots this year.
Gotcha.
We have to be able to meet those needs, somehow. And so if anybody wants to donate to Roma Foundation, we're finally opening it up after 15 years, where if you want to make a nonprofit, a tax-deductible donation to Roma Foundation and contribute to the work that we've already done for 15 years, please go to romafoundation.com, make a donation, or send us a check, or whatever you want to do. It's all going to Roma Foundation to support Giving Poverty the Boot. And as far as social media, we're just under Roma Boots, Samuel Bistrian, Roma Foundation. So yeah, look us up and follow us.
I love the Roma Foundation because I was thinking, well, it's been a little busy since I started a new podcast, and I told all the grandkids, but there's the year before we have 10 grandkids. Each one of them was getting like 5 or 6 presents, and I was like, this is not going to happen this year. So I said, I'm cutting y'all all a check because you so graciously gave me a discount code that I could get them boots. I thought, it's not happening. But I thought, what I really would like to do is just write a check to the foundation. I want to know that every penny is going to go buy a boot for somebody. And then I guess I didn't search the website hard enough, but I thought, I can't tell how to do that. So I know I will see Samuel and I'll ask him. So yeah, and I don't know if it's big on your website, but make sure it's big on the website because there's a lot
we're just sort of transitioning into that. And that's because we're getting so much demand for donations.
Yes.
And the best way to meet that or to bridge that gap is through opening it up. And I've always took pride in the fact that we're self-sustaining, but at the same time, at this point, it's like, look, we could make a much bigger impact if we availed ourselves, because there's a lot of people that want to contribute to a good cause. And I love giving to good causes, that are making an impact. And so I'm like, let's just open it up. So I spoke to our board and they said, yes, let's go out there and open it up so we can make more of an impact than we've ever made. So I think the next 15 years are going to be greater than our previous 15 years.
They for sure will.
The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. It'll be fun to watch. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And if you're a Patreon member, we're going to have a little bit more talking, Samuel and I. I'm going to ask him a bunch of just fun questions. So head on over there if you're a member. If not, you might want to become one. And go check out Roma Boots. He's got quite some fashionable boots. Y'all are always changing styles. There's always something new. And join us next time for another Insights with Marsha.